to be able to just make a choice on your own and just be able to speak for yourself.
Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, and we continue with our analysis of Harry's wife quite simply because she keeps getting in our purview. As you know, her need to assert control over those around her and the general public, allied with her sense of grandiosity, her deluded nature in believing that she is a force for good in the world, means that she cannot help herself but keep appearing. Even when she was apparently on parental leave, from what, she continued to appear in news feeds, commenting, creating videos. Other people would relish the time to be with their children, to disappear from the limelight for a period of time, to enjoy those apparently precious moments between you and the child, creating memories, capturing the images, both photograph and video, to look back on many years later in your dotage. However, when it comes to the narcissist, the prime aims have to be sought. And with a narcissist that believes that they are hugely important and believes that they have a place on the world stage, this means that disappearing from the limelight for a period of time simply is not an option. And accordingly, that is why we have been treated, in inverted commas, to repeated appearances since this supposed parental leave. And of course, now this supposed parental leave has come to a conclusion. It's pedal to the metal, full throttle, in your face in pin-sharp crikey vision, starting with the quasi-royal tour of New York City. But we're going to take a little step back in time. We're going to go back to when Harry's wife was in Canada, and I'm going to provide you with some video and photograph analysis, which also allies with some reportage. When you think of Walkies, you may well think, aha, this must be another instance of where the Ginger Prince is being dragged from the coop, leash around his neck and taken out for some exercise, maybe to go and shake like a shitting dog over in the corner as he curls one off. No, actually, it isn't old Ginger Bollocks who's being taken for a walk. I'll let the footage commence, and we can take it from there. As you can see from the video footage, this was taken at somewhere called Horth Hill Loop Trail in North Saanich, British Columbia, Canada. And we've stopped the footage after just 2 seconds to enable you to see two things. First of all, the fact that there is the good old rictus grin making its appearance at the top of the screen. Harry's wife grinning away. Why? Well, of course, she knows that there's a camera trained upon her, that she's being filmed, and therefore her narcissism, seeing that somebody is on the radar, the person operating the camera, and with the knowledge that, well, this will be the paps come to see me because I'm important and I'm famous, the fixed rictus grin makes its appearance to assert control not only for the camera operator, but also of those that will subsequently view the footage. So her narcissism compels her to smile, and she does so as a consequence of the receipt of fuel, knowing that she's receiving attention because somebody's filming her, taking photographs of her, and also thought fuel, as she envisages various people going, oh, look, isn't she wonderful, taking the dogs for a walk, and also Archie. Accordingly, the provision of that fuel creates the rictus grin, and it manifests externally as appearing that she's happy. But as you know from my work, we don't actually experience happiness. She, as an unaware mid-range narcissist, will, of course, believe that she is happy because the narcissism compels her to believe that to be the case. However, she doesn't experience happiness. And for those of you who've been ensnared by a narcissist, you should keep that in mind. You will, of course, be made to feel miserable, sad, upset, hurt, angry, various negative emotions. But understand this, We don't experience happiness. I know I don't, and it doesn't concern me. I don't miss something that I've never had. Power is what matters to me. Lesser and mid-range narcissists are duped by their own narcissism for the purpose of enabling them to fit in into believing that they are happy. However, they do of course experience the looming nature of the chasm and the catcalls of the creature, and therefore contentment and true happiness is denied to them. Now, returning to the paused footage, we see the rictus grin, but also, what about Archie? There he is, clinging on for dear life as he is slumped in the harness, facing his mother, one leg dangling out, arm lifted. Now, I'm not a parent. As I've explained before, I find children a nuisance, and therefore of little use to me. However, even I can see that the carrying of Archie in this manner is inappropriate and undoubtedly uncomfortable for the young chap. He may well be experiencing a little bit of pressure on his thighs as a consequence of the angle at which he's slumped, and it can't be comfortable for him. Of course, Mother doesn't notice. Why? 2 reasons. First of all, she has no emotional empathy, therefore there isn't an instinct to get it right in the first place, or, because everybody can make a mistake, even if she gets the harness wrong to begin with, she's not looking down and checking that he's okay. She's not checking the harness. She would feel that something's not quite right, that he's off balance as she's carrying him. But she doesn't notice. Why? Because she has no emotional empathy that acts as a safeguard to see that. Furthermore, it's all about her, not about him. And it's all about, look at me. I'm taking Archie for a walk and I'm taking the dogs for a walk. Aren't I a good person? And that's what's dominating her thoughts, driven by her narcissism, not to care for Archie and his circumstances. Pausing the footage a second later, we can now see Harry's wife looking ahead. Notice again the dead eyes. The smile doesn't reach the eyes, but the fixed rictus grin in place, staring straight ahead. Now, as part of the reportage I'm going to come to a little later on, it's important for you to take notice of this face. Is this a face that's scowling? Is this a face that's angry? Is this a face that portrays irritation, annoyance, madness? No, it's not. It's one that appears to show somebody that's happy and delighted, calm and relaxed. Make a mental note of that for what comes later on. Having paused the footage at 25 seconds, we've been treated to repeated views of Harry's wife walking along the path with the 2 dogs, Archie hanging like a sack of potatoes from her chest. You can see that repeatedly the angle at which he is clearly one that is not comfortable, and rather than adjust him in the harness because of the absence of emotional empathy, this isn't done. It's not as if she could utilise the excuse of, well, what do I do with the dogs while I'm doing that? The dogs may well be trained, and you could just leave them to sniff around. Or hand them to one of the 2 protection officers that are walking behind her. Or she could loop it around a tree trunk or such like. Even tread on the leads, so that she could use both hands to adjust her son. So an excuse of saying, well, I couldn't do anything about it because I had my hands full, simply doesn't wash. And it's quite simply the manifestation of an absence of emotional empathy to have her son dangling in this manner, which is clearly uncomfortable, one leg far lower than the other, almost as if he's going to fall out. She's got her arm across him to prevent that happening, but he ought not to have been placed in the harness in this position to begin with, and it ought to have been adjusted as went along. Interesting, the 2 police officers don't appear to have noticed, or if they had, they're not interested. The first one's dialing in his order for something to eat later on, more intent on whether he's going to have chicken jalfrezi or beef rogan josh. And the other police officer, wearing green, is undoubtedly thinking, Christ, this is boring. I was signed up to be James Bond, not wandering around following a no-mark celebrity actress. I should have stayed in Britain. Having paused the original footage at 45 seconds, you have been able to see the repeated dangling of Archie and how Harry's wife continues along, oblivious, eyes staring ahead, rictus grin upon face. At 45 seconds, she actually turns and looks back as if to check that the police officers are keeping up with her. And again, there'd be an opportunity to say, could you just hold these dogs while I sort out my child? But this isn't taken. And instead, he continues to dangle most uncomfortably as she's oblivious to his discomfort. And it would appear that the police officers haven't noticed either, or if they have thought, well, it's not our responsibility. Or quite possibly, they know better than to point out that she's done something wrong for fear of some kind of backlash from her. As the type of narcissist she is, naturally, anyone suggesting that she's done anything wrong will threaten her control, and is challenge fuel. This will necessitate her narcissism to respond in a particular way to resist that threat to control. And given the type of narcissist that she is, this may well be a mixture of both cold and heated fury. A withering look, a barked response, a put down, a dismissive, I don't need your help, or there's nothing wrong here, I've got it under control, or you do your job and I'll do mine. Dismissive, slightly haughty, arrogant. I've let the balance of the footage play out, and you can see once again for yourself Archie dangling and Harry's wife carrying on as if nothing is wrong whatsoever. Again, underlining that there's no emotional empathy at operation. Even her cognitive empathy has gone missing on this occasion, i.e., that's the ability to learn to feign empathy for an individual. And it's all about the opportunity of being seen, smiling at the camera, saying, look at me, managing that facade driven by her narcissism. Now, you've kept in mind, of course, the image that Harry's wife portrayed as you've watched this footage. Smiling, looking to an uneducated observer that she's perfectly happy with the scenario. There is no threat to her control here. Nobody's criticising her, nobody's telling her what to do, nobody's ignoring her, and therefore the interaction that she's having with those around her, and presumably the individual that's filming her and taking photographs, is a positive one. She's been given positive fuel because people are paying attention to her and they're not threatening her control. Hence, she looks as though she is happy because there's no threat to control, and therefore the receipt of the positive fuel causes her to smile. Having dug around in the archives a little bit, I found an article from the Daily Express from the 4th of September 2020, written by Alice Scarzi. And it was headlined, Harry's wife and Archie sue photo agency accused of taking their pictures while on walk. Harry's wife and her son, Archie Harrison, are suing a photo agency accused of papping them while on a dog walk in Canada. Harry's wife has claimed the photographs taken in January in Canada by picture agency Splash represent a misuse of her son's private information and are in breach of the Data Protection Act. Splash's solicitors have reportedly suggested Harry's wife knew everything that was going on, and she carried on walking when she knew she was being photographed. The case has been brought to the High Court in London in the names of Master Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor and the Duchess of Sussex. Harry and Harry's wife are described as their son's litigation friends, which means they are appointed to make decisions about the court case for their child. The claim is being pursued against the US branch of Splash and a London company of the same name that acts as a representative. During a remote hearing on Wednesday, the representatives for the Sussexes, Barrister Jonathan Barnes, said that Harry's wife and Archie had been papped. He told the court, "In a nutshell, as a claimant lawyer, I would describe what happened to the claimants as they were being papped. This was without their acquiescence or consent, and it is accepted that it was by an employee of the US agency, Steve Dennett." Speaking about the nature of Harry's wife and Archie's outing, Mr. Barnes added the photographs had been snapped during a private recreational outing on Vancouver Island. The barrister also claimed that the day before these pictures were taken, the photographer was at the private home of the claimants, and said he was casing their home, testing his light meter and taking photos through the security fence, so he was not at the park by accident. Mr. Barnes added the representatives of Splash had suggested in correspondence that the first claimant knew everything that was going on and was a volunteer in the sense that she carried on walking when she knew she was being photographed. The Sussex's barrister continued, "What happened immediately after the photographs were taken is that they were immediately offered for worldwide syndication by the media, and what's more, they were then snapped up, in particular by Associated Newspapers and News Group." The photographs had been taken in Canada by an American photographer, the barrister said. However, the trading of the ill-gotten gains occurred in London, he added, explaining why the UK High Court had been deemed a suitable place for the claim. Mr. Barnes added that conduct, which is essentially the trading of the private information or the personal data, all took place here. The picture agency was not represented at the hearing, but has said it intends to defend itself vigorously. The hearing ended with Master Victoria MacLeod giving the claimants permission to serve their case against the US arm of Splash. The Duchess of Sussex and her son were photographed while walking their dogs in Canada, a few days after Harry and Harry's wife had announced their intentions to step back as senior royals. In the pictures, Harry's wife can be seen smiling broadly while holding her two dogs on a leash. Archie, carried in a sling, can only be seen from behind. In the background, security officers can be seen walking at a distance behind the Duchess and Archie. At the time the pictures were taken, the group was strolling through Horth Hill Regional Park on Vancouver Island, where the Sussexes temporarily lived between mid-November and March. Now, you've seen the footage. You have seen the photographs. Does Harry's wife put her hand up, flick the V, flip the bird, tell them to piss off, turn around and say to the officers, "Go and seize the film, stop this guy filming," turn around and walk back the way that she's gone, gesture angrily, try and cover her face? No. She does none of those things. Instead, she looks straight into the camera lens and carries on smiling. Why? Because she didn't regard it as a threat to control. And this demonstrates many aspects of the narcissistic dynamic. First of all, the fact that the behaviour enabled her to feel a sense of control, thus we see the smiling response to it. There's no threat. There's no annoyance, no irritation, no ignited fury caused. Thereafter, the appearance of the photographs amounts to a threat to control. Primarily, I suspect, because in the world of Harry's wife, somebody's making revenue off it, and she should be. After all, she is Markle. Now, the fact that somebody else has made use of the photographs and the footage means that they were getting paid for it, and therefore that would threaten her sense of control. Now, somebody who wasn't a narcissist wouldn't do anything about it, because they would think, yeah, I was filmed, it wasn't a problem, they weren't filming me or taking pictures of me doing anything untoward, I was just walking along, they're good pictures actually, I look relaxed, and here I am walking the dogs and with my son, yeah, everything's fine. The non-narcissist would not have an issue with it, because of course the non-narcissist doesn't have that necessity of asserting control at all times when the narcissist is conscious. However, with Harry's wife, her unconscious narcissism at a later juncture determines that her control has been threatened by this filming, by the use of the photographs. And therefore, at this later juncture, the narcissism decides that it needs to compel her to assert control over the relevant agency, and therefore litigation ensues. It doesn't matter that one can see the blatant hypocrisy, which indeed has been pointed out by the defendant to the claim. Not at all. But everybody else can see it. This demonstrates the compartmentalization that occurs, the moment by moment, the fact that many moments ago, Harry's wife, with no threat to control, was content to smile, to show, in effect, that she knew what was going on and didn't have a problem with it. But of course, as you know from the Narcissist conditional asterisks, and if you haven't listened to that video, I would urge you to do so, that at a later juncture, we can bring up something from the past and use it against you. And notwithstanding the fact that the material from the past shows that she clearly knows what is going on and has no issue with it, that doesn't matter. She will deflect that, minimise it, reduce it, eradicate it, whatever it takes, driven by her narcissism, in order to control now with the litigation and the bringing of the claim. So these photographs and piece of footage shows many aspects of the narcissistic dynamic. The absence of emotional empathy for Archie, the failure of the cognitive empathy, the need to assert control, the receipt of fuel, the fact that there is no threat to control, and how that manifests in the narcissist, and thereafter compartmentalization and hypocrisy. So on this occasion, although it wasn't Harry being taken for Walkies, the incident of Walkies provides us once again with an excellent opportunity to see various aspects of the narcissistic dynamic in action. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.